Okay, so let's just unpack this for a second. Picture the scene. It is early 2026. And depending on who you actually ask right now, the tech world is either in this golden age or it is having a complete meltdown.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating contradiction, isn't it? Because on one hand, you have this massive, undeniable surge in innovation with AI.
Right, it's everywhere.
It's literally everywhere. But then you look at the stock market and the values of the traditional darlings of the SaaS world, software as a service, they're dropping. And dropping significantly.
And that is exactly the crossroads we're diving into today.
Yeah.
Because we are looking at a fundamental shift in how software is developed, how it's shipped, and really how it's monetized.
Which is the scary part for a lot of these companies.
Exactly. So to help us navigate this, we're doing a deep dive into a really eye-opening talk given at the Qatar Web Summit 2026.
Yeah, the one by Krishna Raj Raja.
Right. The founder and CEO of SupportLogic and author of the book Support Experience.
And he's such a great guide for this specific deep dive because he actually saw a lot of this coming. I mean, back in his 2016 thesis, which, keep in mind, is years before ChatGPT was even a whisper in the mainstream.
A long time ago in tech years.
A lifetime ago. But he predicted that, quote, experience is everything. He argued that customer support was going to have to shift from being just a traditional cost center. Something you just pay for to keep the lights on.
Right, the basement department.
Exactly. It had to shift from that into a revenue center.
Which honestly feels like a really bold claim for 2016. But today, our mission is even bigger than that. For you listening, we're trying to figure out what actually separates the winners from the losers in this new AI-first world.
Because it's definitely not just about who has the best chatbot anymore.
No, not at all. It's about who can survive a fundamental business model shift.
That is the absolute key phrase here, business model shift. To understand why that is so dangerous, we kind of have to look backward first. Raja breaks the history of computing down into 4 very distinct eras.
Okay, let's walk through these. So, era number 1 is the SQL or database era.
Right, this is the foundation. Think back to the 90s. Data was highly structured. Development was waterfall, which means it was
very linear, very slow.
So slow. And the business model was the perpetual license. You bought the software, you owned the software, and you maintained it on your very own servers.
This was the era of Siebel.
Exactly. Siebel was the absolute giant of that time. But then we move into era number 2, which is the SaaS era. And this is where Salesforce and ServiceNow really enter the picture and blow things up.
Because the model shifted from owning to renting.
Yeah.
We got subscriptions and cloud hosting.
Yes. And this is where things get super interesting because Raja points out this concept of a trap. Siebel didn't survive that shift to SaaS. They were the undisputed king of the hill, and then suddenly they weren't.
But why, though? I mean, they had literally all the money. Couldn't they just hire a bunch of engineers to build a cloud version of their stuff?
You would think so, right? That's the logical conclusion. But that is where people get really confused. Raja makes a crucial distinction here. Technology shifts are actually relatively easy to adapt to. You can just hire engineers to write new code.
Okay.
But business model shifts, those are incredibly hard.
Because you have to change how you make money, not just what you're selling.
Exactly. Imagine you are the CEO and you have to tell your shareholders, hey, instead of getting a $1 million check up front for this software license today, we are going to take $20,000 a month for the next 5 years.
Oh, man, the shareholders would riot. Your revenue would just collapse in the short term.
It collapses. The stock market punishes you relentlessly. It's agonizing for a public company to go through that.
So Siebel didn't die because they forgot how to write code. They died because they couldn't stomach that massive drop in revenue required to actually switch their business model.
Precisely. And so now we've moved past era 3, which was the big data era, focusing on just processing massive amounts of information, and we are firmly in era 4, the intelligence era.
Where we are right now.
Right now. And here is what Raja calls the survivor's dilemma. Companies like Salesforce, who were the young rebels disrupting Siebel 20 years ago, are now the establishment. And they are being challenged because now their business model is under attack.
Okay, wait, how so? Break that down.
Well, the entire SaaS model is heavily based on per-seat pricing. You pay a subscription fee for every single human who logs into and uses the software.
Right.
But we're entering an AI-first world. If an AI agent can suddenly do the work of 10 people, or if the software basically just runs itself, why on earth are you paying for those 10 seats?
Oh, I see. If I am using AI to actively reduce my headcount, I'm automatically reducing the amount of money I pay to Salesforce or ServiceNow.
Exactly. The core revenue model is breaking all over again. And the incumbents are terrified because they are sitting in the exact same precarious position that Siebel was in 2 decades ago.
That is a terrifying cycle if you're an executive there. And what makes this current shift so much scarier for these companies is just the sheer speed. I mean, the velocity of adoption right now is completely unprecedented. The deep dive sources showed this chart comparing how long it took different tech to reach 100 million users.
Oh, the numbers on that chart are staggering.
It took the telephone 75 years to reach 100 million users. 75 years.
And then mobile phones took, what, about 16 years?
Yeah, 16. But then you look at ChatGPT. 100 days?
100 days. And the crazy thing is, it is not just about user adoption anymore. It is about revenue velocity. We are seeing AI companies go from 0 to $100 million in revenue in just 6 to 9 months.
How's that even physically possible, though? Even if you build a magical product, you still have to spin up servers, integrate payment processing, actually market it to find customers.
It's that old concept of standing on the shoulders of giants. Think about Amazon for a second. For Amazon to even exist, it needed the internet to be functional, and it needed a widespread credit card infrastructure to already be in place.
Without that, Amazon is just a guy in a garage sitting on a massive pile of books.
Exactly. Similarly, ChatGPT and this whole current wave of AI, they didn't just happen in a vacuum. They needed mobile phone proliferation, deep internet saturation, and the massive, massive big data infrastructure that the cloud era spent the last 10 years building. The highways were already built and paved. AI just came along and bought a really fast car to drive on them.
Speaking of cars, let's pivot to talk about the user experience, the UX revolution. Because this isn't just about back-end database code, it's really about how we actually talk to the machines.
This is arguably the most human and relatable part of this entire shift. Raja outlines this really clear 25-year cycle of UX revolutions. Back in the 1950s, you had punch cards. If you wanted to use a computer, you basically had to be a specialized scientist in a university basement.
Right. Then jump to 1975, you get the command line interface. Still pretty geeky, mostly just green text on a black screen, but definitely better than punch cards.
Much better. But then the big one hits in the year 2000, the graphical user interface, or GUI. This is the era of clicking icons, dragging windows. That is what finally made computing accessible to the general workforce.
But now, 2025, 2026, we are entering the era of the CUI, the conversational user interface.
Which means we just
talk.
We talk. And this is profoundly disruptive because for the first time in human history, we don't have to spend time learning the computer's language. The computer has finally learned our language.
Raja mentions this specifically opens up tech access to, quote, kids and grandmas.
It completely democratizes technology. Think about it. If your grandmother can just casually tell the software what she wants it to do, the barrier to entry is completely gone.
So if you're building software today, you can't just design it for a specialized IT workforce that read a manual anymore. You really have to design for everyone.
Yes, but, and this is where it gets really complicated for businesses, just because everyone can talk to the computer, that absolutely does not mean the computer is ready to actually run a business.
Yeah.
Raja uses this fantastic analogy of a Ferrari engine.
Right, the Ferrari engine. So he compares large language models, LLMs, to a high-performance engine. It's incredibly powerful, it's really fast, and importantly, now it's basically a commodity. Everyone has access to this exact same engine.
But you can't drive just an engine down the highway.
No, an engine doesn't drive itself. You need wheels, you need brakes, a steering wheel, safety belts, air conditioning. In software terms, you really have to engineer around the LLM to make it a safe, usable commercial product.
And this leads us straight into what he calls the last mile problem.
Which is the hardest part, right?
Always. The last mile is notoriously the hardest part of literally any technology rollout. Think about 5G cellular networks. You can go out and buy the most expensive, best 5G phone in the world, but if you are standing in a dead zone, that actual last mile of local connectivity, the phone is just a very expensive brick.
Or think about autonomous cars. I feel like we've been hearing that self-driving cars are coming next year for about 15 years now.
Exactly. And why aren't they everywhere yet? Because of that last mile, the edge cases, the sudden snowstorms, the weirdly placed construction cones, unpredictable pedestrians.
The messy stuff.
Right. In AI, the last mile is all about handling those messy exceptions. The generic models, that Ferrari engine, they are amazing at the general broad stuff, but they hallucinate or fail completely when things get highly specific or when data is scarce.
And enterprise business is nothing but messy edge cases.
It's incredibly messy. So the winning strategy for tech companies isn't just saying, hey, we use AI now. It's about amassing highly specific data on these edge cases that miss reality and building an architecture that can actually handle them without breaking.
Let's actually get into the weeds of that messiness, because I think this is where the rubber really meets the road for the deep dive. We talk about silos in business all the time, right?
Yeah.
But Raja is arguing that we are actually actively creating new types of silos right now.
We are all familiar with traditional data silos. Marketing has their HubSpot database, sales has their Salesforce database, and they don't sync up. But now we're dealing with signal silos and context silos, and perhaps most dangerously, AI silos.
AI silos. That actually sounds super counterintuitive to me. Isn't AI the thing that's supposed to magically connect everything together?
You would certainly hope so. But play this out. Imagine your company buys a shiny new support bot, a sales bot, and an engineering bot from 3 different vendors. If those AIs aren't natively talking to each other, you have entirely fragmented intelligence.
You basically have a company with multiple personalities.
Yes. The sales bot is cheerfully promising the customer the moon, while the support bot is simultaneously telling them that feature doesn't even exist yet.
That is an absolute nightmare for a customer.
And that leads right into the context war. Raja states very plainly, context is everything. But he does not just mean what the user literally just typed into the little chat window.
Right, because usually when tech people talk about AI context, they just mean the context window, like how many paragraphs of text the model can keep in its short-term memory.
Exactly. But enterprise business context is vastly different. If I am talking to you, context isn't just the last sentence I said. It is our entire shared history, our previous interactions over years, the channel we are communicating on, and who we actually are in the organization. Raja argues that real context has to span time, interactions, people, channels, and systems of record.
The source material actually provides this fantastic, really gritty example of what happens when you don't have that context. It's a banking scenario involving a customer named Pat Marlowe.
Ah, yes, Pat Marlowe, the director of IT at the Green Bay Packers.
Yes, this is a very specific scenario from the presentation slides, and Pat is a very unhappy camper.
To put it mildly, we are looking at data points here of extremely angry emails. One of them specifically says, quote, "This is a complete #show."
Yeah, full profanity.
He is aggressively complaining about failed Chrome patches, specifically version 3.2. He's making active threats to move his entire investment account over to Citibank. It is just a complete disaster.
So think about this in a traditional setup. A frontline support agent might log in and just see a generic ticket that says, "Issue with Chrome patch." They don't see the SE&Me at #show email or the fact that Pat is the director of IT for a massive VIP account or that he's currently on the phone threatening to leave for Citibank.
Exactly. That right there is a context silo. But the solution Raja proposes, using a specialized architecture like what SupportLogic built, it actually stitches all of this chaos together in real time. It detects a sentiment score. So in this specific case, Pat's sentiment score was detected at 30 out of 100.
Which is very low.
Extremely low. It automatically flags profanity, it flags churn risk, and it successfully correlates ticket number 134789 all the way through 134794 across his emails, his web chats, and his voice calls.
Wow. So it actually connects the dots across the whole company. It sees the email about the SAN at #show, the chat message about the Chrome patch, and the phone call about Citibank, and the AI says, "Whoa, major red alert here."
Precisely. And doing that at enterprise scale requires some really deep architectural decisions. Raja explicitly mentions needing things like zero-copy architecture.
Okay, let's pause right there. Zero copy. Can you translate that buzzword for us?
Sure. So in the old days, the big data era we talked about, if you wanted to analyze a bunch of data from Salesforce and Jira and Gmail, you would literally copy all of that data and paste it into a giant separate data warehouse. You duplicate everything.
It has to be incredibly expensive and really slow.
Right, very expensive, and the data is stale the second you copy it. Zero copy means you don't duplicate the data at all. You build an architecture that can just read the data where it natively lives inside Salesforce, inside Jira, without moving it. It's kind of like streaming a movie on Netflix versus downloading the whole file to your computer. You get to watch the movie without filling up your own hard drive.
That makes total sense. But wait, if you're constantly reading all that live data, doesn't that just crash the source system? Like if I'm hitting Salesforce with a query every single second, isn't Salesforce going to throttle me or kick me out?
That is exactly the risk, which is why Raja says you have to couple zero copy with another concept called differential sync.
Okay, another buzzword. Break that one down too.
Differential sync basically means you only ever look at what has changed since the last time you looked. So if Pat Marlowe has a 5-year history with the bank, the AI doesn't reread 5 entire years of his emails every time he sends a new one.
Right, that would be insane.
It only syncs the delta, the difference, just the new email. This is the magic that allows the system to operate in true real time without putting a massive crashing load on the bank's source systems.
Okay, so zero copy means we don't move the massive pile of data, and differential sync means we only look at the brand new stuff added to the pile. That is the actual plumbing that allows the AI to see the full context of Pat Marlowe's misery without taking down the bank's servers.
Exactly. That is how you actually solve the last mile problem in an enterprise. You can't just throw a generic happy chatbot at Pat Marlowe when he's actively screaming about a Eshiana #show. You need an AI system that instantly understands the full context of why he's mad.
I love that. The full context of his misery. And, having all this context instantly available, it completely changes how we consume business data, too. I mean, we used to love our dashboards. I feel like every single SaaS product I bought in 2015 was basically just 90% dashboard.
Oh, dashboard fatigue is so real. People are sick of them. Raja points out that the future of work isn't logging into a portal to stare at a pie chart. It's accessing these deep insights via APIs and model context protocols, MCPs.
MCPs.
Yeah, think of an MCP as just a standardized way for an AI model to explicitly ask a system for information. Instead of a human opening a dashboard to hunt for an answer, the AI uses an MCP to query the database directly in the background.
So instead of me staring at a complicated chart of customer sentiment trying to spot a trend, I might just ask the interface, hey, who is most likely to churn today? And it just tells me, hey, Pat Marlowe from the Packers is really mad about Chrome patches. Call him.
Exactly. The visual interface essentially dissolves. The software becomes an active agent that answers your questions rather than a dense screen of data you have to manually interpret.
Wow. Okay, so zooming out a bit to wrap this up. We have established that the tech is moving insanely fast, the interface is becoming conversational, and the ultimate winners are going to be the ones who can handle the messy, highly contextual last mile of data. But what does all this actually mean for the broader economy? Raja brings up the Industrial Revolution and the Digital Revolution here.
This is really the big so what of this entire deep dive. The Industrial Revolution fundamentally changed global economics through mass production, right? It made physical things cheaper.
Right.
Then the Digital Revolution created the massive service economy we have today. Companies like Netflix, YouTube, Uber. But now we are smack in the middle of the cognitive revolution.
But he explicitly gives a warning here.
Yes, he warns about the trap of cognitive automation.
Walk us through that trap.
Well, if you use AI simply to automate your existing workflows, like you just do the exact same things you did yesterday, but faster and with fewer human employees, you definitely create efficiency.
Sure.
And that is great for your short-term profit margins, but it doesn't necessarily grow the overall economy.
Because you're just slicing the exact same pie into smaller, cheaper pieces.
Right. To be a truly transformative global company and not just some Silicon Valley bubble startup tech needs to figure out how to use AI to invent and sell entirely new products and goods, things we haven't even thought of yet.
That is a massive distinction. It is the difference between saying, I can answer your support tickets 20% faster versus saying, I can offer you a completely new service that physically wasn't possible before AI.
Exactly. The Industrial Revolution didn't just make blacksmiths swing their hammers faster. It gave us cars. We desperately need the cars of the cognitive revolution, not just slightly faster horses.
So for you listening right now, whether you're an investor, a software developer, or honestly just someone trying to navigate your career and not get replaced by a bot, the core message here seems to be, don't just settle for having the generic Ferrari engine. The real lasting value is in building the wheels, the brakes, and navigating that messy, complicated road you're actually driving on.
And most importantly, deeply understanding the context of the person in the driver's seat.
Absolutely. I want to leave you with one final provocative thought that came up while we were reviewing all this source material. If AI truly makes software conversational, if it successfully democratizes access so completely that grandmas and young kids can use complex systems just by talking to them, are we witnessing the end of learning software?
Wait, what do you mean by that?
Well, think about it. The last 30 years, our value as corporate workers has very often been tied to our tool knowledge. Like, I know how to use Excel really well, or I am certified in Salesforce. We spent months learning the software. But if the software now intuitively understands us, if the software learns us.
Oh, wow. Then the human skill set shifts entirely. It's no longer about memorizing how to operate the tool. It becomes entirely about your critical thinking and asking the right questions.
Exactly. And if that's true, what happens to all those massive legacy businesses whose entire moat, their entire defense against upstart competition was simply the fact that their software was incredibly complex and hard to replace? If the complexity suddenly goes away, do those companies go away too?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question right there.
Definitely something for you to think about the next time you find yourself casually chatting with a bot.
That's all the time we have for this deep dive. We will see you in the next era.